Okay, so let's go back to the various threats, crisis scenarios impacting the business operation. All right, I covered some of it earlier already. Okay, this is a definition, quite similar since all of you have got a sound BCM background. So this should not be something surprising to you. All right, so the impact type would be anything that's negative or have consequence that can result in the disruption in an organization's operation, right? And let's dive a bit deeper into what these disruptive events or scenarios, and later, all right, how these disruptive events may impact some of the operational issue. Here, the definition, now this is BCMI definition, all right? So if you are taking the exam, this will be the correct definition, all right? Manifesting in the host of operational issue. So it's a series of operational issue, all right? More information of this, all right? Actually, if you click on all these, the BCMpedia, they are all there, okay? So they are all there to help you, right? But let's focus on what some of these disruptive events can be, okay, and how they may impact your operational issues. So this should not be new, all right, to all of you. Regardless, these are examples from a BCM planning perspective, right? I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter how you identify this, right? Just make sure you don't pluck from the sky, but at least be able to have a thought process. Okay, this page focus on identifying, you must have done so, all right? Leverage on what you have done, okay? There are also many studies, a report out there on the horizon scanning, okay? So if you Google, you know, or if you are members of any institute, right, there are reports, independent reports out there to tell you what organizations are, what are the threats that organizations are facing. So if you go into the BCMpedia, they have a whole list of threats, okay? Okay, I'm launching it right now, may take a while, but take my word for it, it's launching in the background. Under each of these, whether it's natural, man-made, there are examples out there, right? Whether it's earthquake, any of you in New York, Boston, Dean, were you affected by the Canada fire recently? I think it was earlier this month or last month.
Boston, just slightly, really, but certainly New York.
Exactly.
Heard, you know, New York City, New York State, and somebody in Chicago was mentioning it to me just the other day. So those cities, but I'm sure that with the right winds, Boston will have our days coming up.
Okay, I'm going to test you, right? So prior to this, in your New York operation, would you even identify this as a threat?
We do watch wildfire activity, usually from the perspective just of understanding proximity to our locations or our people, particularly with people working from home now. So we do just like to make sure that our folks are aware of things that are happening around them. Sometimes they appreciate that. Sometimes they think that we're a little, you know, monitoring them a little too closely, but not necessarily from the perspective of like the heavy impact on air quality, you know, the need to stay home, the need to sort of restrict your activities, you know, that the degree here is a little bit more recently.
Okay, yeah, good. All right, so back in 2015, Singapore was affected by very bad haze, all right, went into unhealthy range, all right, and at that point of time, work from home wasn't that pervasive. Remember 2015, all right, we didn't have the COVID-19 to thank then, all right, so we only had a fraction of people, but the air quality was so bad. So it was not so much about working in the office, but it's about commuting, all right? When you commute between your home to the office, you expose yourself to the unhealthy range of, right? So The fire came from our neighbor, our friendly neighbor. All right. So that's why I use the example of Canada affecting New York. Okay. And guess what? At that point of time, some of our staff, right, they actually requested to go back to the office because we were ready for it. We were planned for it. Our indoor air quality in the office was definitely much better from their home, right? For those guys. So they requested to go back, and we had all the plans in place, business continuity planning, right? So we allowed them to catch at that point of time, I think no Grab or that, just taxi. So we allowed them to take a taxi to reduce the commuting time, right, to and from office. So something for you to take note. I'm just sharing this example is leverage on what you have, right? And never say never, right? Technological, man-made will be, cyber attack will be the most common one, I suppose, right? And not forgetting, all right, if you wear the crisis management planning hat, right, or the lens of the crisis management, these are all the scenarios, right? Natural, technological, there are some overlaps as well, right? But crisis scenarios that are not in the business continuity will be on the right-hand side, will be things like organizational misdeed. So this is where you go back to leadership, right? So if there is a misconduct of a C-suite, what do? Who is the leadership, right? Lack of funds, I will add lack of liquidity after the recent cases, okay? All right, so the leverage, the whole idea of this is to remind you to leverage on what you have done, okay? And so that we can move on to this second exercise on what are the types of operational disruption affecting your organization, right? I've listed here very simply, and I think most common will be the one that we've been there, done that, COVID-19 and the cyber attack, okay? So besides that, anyone have got any others that you may have access? Because from the sound of the first exercise, most of you would have been there and done that for this already, right? For those of you who have, maybe one or two of you can just share out loud. Anyone would like to just share? Anything that you,
We do have
yeah.
we have an intelligence function in our department, and working with them, we track a lot of things. Hopefully they won't all happen, but certainly political tensions, climate change, energy instability, supply chain. I'm just looking at a list here. Financial challenges, elements of social erosion. Those are some things that then we plot them all on these heat maps just to kind of get consensus how we think that a wide range of things might affect our company: violent crime, infrastructure, just the civil unrest. So we have lots of elements, and then we track if we think that they're kind of increasing or decreasing in likelihood. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
I would
Virginia?
say, yeah, I would say that one of the things that obviously has increased in the past few years is our dependency on third party. And the potential impact on our operations is probably one of our top risks, right? So this is something that we're monitoring very closely. There are also new requirements that are popping up, across the world again regarding third-party dependency, material outsourcing. What does that mean? What are the controls that you need to have in place, and so forth? So third-party is definitely one. We've had several incidents where our third parties have experienced cyber events, for example, that have impacting their ability to provide services to us. One of and thankfully we didn't have any impact from a data perspective on our end, but that one of our payroll provider was impacted by a cyber event, and they were unable to process the payroll for us. So we had to obviously implement the plans that we have in place, the mitigation that we have in place for this, but that was quite disruptive, right? In the sense that who does manual payroll nowadays? This is not something that you really do on a regular basis.
Exactly.
But but third party is definitely something that we are seeing a trend where, obviously we have to protect ourselves, and we look at the ones that impact us directly, but we're seeing more and more potential for indirect threats that will have an impact on us as well, based on the various dependencies that we have. We're also, I mean, like everybody else, we're using cloud providers for some of our applications. We're doing we're doing SaaS applications, right? So all of those dependencies are increasing, and obviously that increases our risk. And then one of the ones that we're still not sure how we're going to tackle, but another one that obviously needs to be tackled, and I think operational resilience will help us to some degree, is fourth party. So we're looking at third party, but we're not necessarily looking at fourth party. So that's another one that we're thinking about.
You read the slides already. Do you download the slides and read? I'm going to cover.
I read the slides, but I have to say that those are the things that we've been talking about for quite some time now, and this is on our journey. So I was glad to see that the slides were actually in sync with what we've been thinking, and we're not going astray. So this is good.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks for sharing, Virginia. Right, since you brought up the issue of third party, right? Okay, we'll cover the fourth party later, right? Subsequently, right? And the latest, right? So we're talking about cyber attack or that. How many of you are actually outsourcing to your Dropbox to move it? All right, right? Recently, about a week ago or so, EY, PwC, among the organizations affected by Move It, all right, there was a cyber attack, right? Right, so these are examples of third party type of threats and how it's going to disrupt your operation. That is something really you have to consider. Yeah, okay. Anything to add, Siti, Charlie, Veronica? Anything to add?
I was just going to say, I was a little late for the call earlier today because we're actually in the middle of a kind of an operational disruption event at the moment for organizations. So our retail banking app is down at the moment. Customers who would use typically, and we're primarily a retail bank, so our customers would typically use that app to obviously view account information, but obviously make payments, as well as it's our tool for SCA for approving card transactions. So that's been down for the last couple of hours, likely on the back of a change that would have gone in last night. But that would be, typically, I think probably from a threat posture perspective, probably cyber is probably the biggest threat. But in terms of the type of disruptions that we see most frequently at still quite a significant enough level are IT technology outages, either on the back of a change being implemented incorrectly, or because it may be a hardware or an out of support system that's acted up. So those type of disruption events would certainly be ones that I'd be concerned about in my own organization from an operational resilience perspective.
Yeah, spot on. All right, so that's what I have as well. And I just flashed a news article, first April, not April Fool, by the way. Something really happened. Okay, sorry, you have to squint your eye a little bit, but I should have blown it out, right? So I highlighted customers of Singapore's largest bank were unable to access DBS, that's the bank, DBS, digibank online and mobile services, as well as the PayLah. So the PayLah is actually the local version of you pay at the merchant, right? So if you go to our hawker center, if you are familiar with Singapore context, right, or one of the eateries, you'll be able to pay directly from your bank. That is our PayLah local version app, as well as the investment platform. All right, so bad. All right, and for your information, on April the 1st wasn't the first time. It was, I think, the second time. All right, and because of that, our government had, or our MAS the regulators has to slap a requirement to set aside an additional $930 million in regulatory capital for this bank as a result of all these outages. All right, so these are all examples. Okay, I hope you can relate. In fact, subsequently, I would like to ask in the subsequent session, right, whether any of you have got such critical. Remember, I mentioned earlier about technology, right? So, do you have any of these that is so dependent on everything nowadays, right? And I guess that's where Dora come in very handy. If we are put in place technology, you can't, right? You can't in my in the organization where I came from, our approach to technology is okay. Again, that's why the Gotham policy come into play, right? Okay, I'm sharing with you. I think it's in the public domain, right? So our technology department believe in, all right, leveraging technology to protect. Cyber attack, right, is to protect. But you don't just protect all the way, right? How do you leverage on technology to innovate as well, right? Because you can't stop, right? And last but not least, can use technology to inspire. Okay, so the three keywords: leverage technology to protect, innovate, and inspire. Yeah, okay, and at the heart of all this is about what's the point of impact? Why are you doing all this? Why are you protecting? Why do you need to innovate? Why do you need to inspire? Not because somebody asked you to do, right? It's because you have a goal. All right, you have a goal, right? Maybe your goal is, from an operational resiliency perspective, is to eliminate the big spider web that Dr. Go is talking about. Yeah, possible. Okay, all right. So good. Thanks for sharing. Any other thoughts? Siti, you have questions?
Kenneth, I like the article, but from most of the organization, especially the banks, they want to be the first in launching certain things, like I think one of our friends was saying. But the things that they do not actually align with the capacity of the infrastructure itself. You know, that's the reason why sometimes when they launch it today and a few weeks after that, there will be something, they will be down in the services because of the capacity issues. So how should I consider that as you know, whether it falls under technology disaster or because of human threat?
Doesn't matter, right, Siti? Doesn't matter, right? I think the whole idea of operational resiliency is, do you even recognize now? All right, like I said earlier, you need to leverage on some of this. And of course, from an operational perspective, wearing the BCM lens or crisis management scenario lens, right? You have identified it, right? The whole idea here is that later when we do the mapping, all right, mapping we will cover in the next session, right? We will cover some of this as well. Okay, and one of the terms that I'm going to introduce to all of you, if you have not done so, is to organize your mapping into the front, mid, and back offices. Are you all doing so? Right, because if you make it into a big spider web, which is I think something like this, right? One of the slides. Okay. Anyway. Remember the mapping on the underpinning, you know, business service, all that, right? Like yeah. So the question here will be, Siti, to your question, right? Will be, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, whether it's a infra capacity issue or whatever. Okay, is what is the objective of doing that? I mentioned where my previous workplace. Okay, is the point of impact. The point of impact is that, for DBS Bank, maybe it's that, okay, we want to have a single platform that will allow our customer to do all this, right? And in so doing, what will be the resources, the budget that you set aside for all this, all right? And whether it's man-made, right, to your point, whether it's man-made or somebody underestimated, size up the capacity wrongly or whatever, right? Then if such a thing happen, how going to impact your is it considered a critical business service that you cannot afford to fail? Does that make sense, Siti?
Yeah. Thanks, Kenneth.
Siti, I just want to add on. I think there's something, sorry, I don't want to be criticizing a country itself. The regulators in Malaysia are much more lenient than most of the regulators in Hong Kong and Singapore. That's my first comment. I don't mean to be rude. Okay, hence you see a lot of people when a lot of banks, when they do something wrong, the regulators don't come in hard on them. I'm just going to tell you the culture in Malaysia. So it's not meant to be rude, it's just meant to be a comment. So you understand the appetite of the central bank, Bank Negara. So that's the first comment. The second comment what I share with you is this. What Kenneth is saying is that, I give example. Actually, many years ago, I actually was helping Singapore Airlines. They had the same problem. I only budget to implement the application. That's all. Then once I implement, then I think about my DR, my backup, my equipment. It's a very normal IT mentality. I'm an IT person many years ago. I always do that, by the way, because my down RPO is 3 days. In the good old days, our system can go down for 3 days if you're as old as me, right? 3 days, 4 days is okay, but now it's not even half an hour. Come on. So that has changed, and because of that, what Singapore Airlines has done, we have done it down this. They go to the board and say, okay, if this is X dollar, this is X times 50, X times 50% more, and it's budgeted for, by the way. So they have time to implement it. Immediately after that, they implement their DR capability, which is actually to be able to go to continue a critical transaction, not 100%, 50% transaction if they go down. Okay, that was what many years ago Singapore Airlines have done. They have done it all along. The moral behind this story is, as operation resilience, the most important thing is you must have the foresight to have that 50% ready, because it's impossible to justify post implementation another 50%. That's how many more $1 million to set up backup site. No steering committee will approve it seriously. So the culture should be, I must have resiliency, and resiliency must be catered for. And if you can do it parallel, good, but most of the time you don't have the luxury of parallel. You do it immediately when you are doing testing, you start build your backup. So this is basically what we will advocate in operation resilience. Now, most of you, we're using DBS Bank. It's the largest bank in Southeast Asia, by the way. And there's a few repercussions after this exercise. I just want to tell you those are the good story. DBS Bank CEO is paid, I think was $11 million. He used to be paid 8.5, now he's paid $11 million in salary, escrowing options. Okay, the whole world is questioning, why are we raising the price when the bank cannot keep the system up for 1 day? And that's the reason why they sanctioned. So the central bank did not punish them by paying them, ask them to pay. They sanctioned by withholding their cash from investing, which is 900 million. And they are short of cash, by the way. I'm telling you true, because they are now going into bonds, selling of bonds equity, to actually raise money for the banks itself. So this is to tell you the punishment does help. Okay, they just hold the cash, you can't use the cash, that's all, and that's it. They can't expand, which they are supposed to. So this is just another example of what, but the example of using a DBS is example. This is not the first time, this is the second time. And by the way, there's a third case just happened, which is actually money laundering. It's actually also operational disruption, same thing. They will this time they find them $2.6 million straight away. Okay, so that one is with the remember the crypto company that went bust in the US. Okay, apparently DBS is involved in the moving of the money, and they'll find $2.6 million. So this is the third operational disruption. You may not call it not part of operational resilience, but it is part of operational resilience. So you begin to see that there are real life example. We will prefer to take the big boys and then demonstrate that this is possible. All right, Kenneth, will do.
Thanks. Yeah. So Siti, you heard right. I overlooked the part right, is penalized, right? Our
Okay.
MES penalized the bank, 930 million, no? Just ask them to reserve. Oh. Can you imagine you cannot touch 930 million? Okay, right.
Okay.
I would like to just conclude this segment, then you can go for maybe a 5 minutes break. Will be something for you to consider as well. My personal encounter, all right. Operations in South Korea. Okay, South Korea, alleged tax evasion. What they did, they suspended our operations. Just alleged, yeah. Out of the blue, they came, one whole group of people came, marched into the office, confiscated everything, our servers, everything, all the PC, laptop, everything. And after that, suspended our operation. Now, is that something that you have considered? Is that something that you can stomach? Doesn't matter. Okay. All right. All right. We are halfway through. Okay. And some more examples. I think Dan and Virginia, you should be quite familiar with this. All right. There are examples given in the UK FCA. All right. So I thought I should take this opportunity. Unfortunately, we don't have Neil here with me. Actually, what I want to share is all these examples may also apply to other industry, not just the bank. Like in this case, the power plant. The last one is the technology, you know, whether they use technology to deliver their IBS or CBF or whatever you call it, right? Like their power generation, scheduling, the contracting, all that, whether they do so, okay? So anyway, Neil is not here, unfortunately. So, but this should be quite familiar to